Hey, hello, welcome to this video for the Ultimate Swing Trader. In this video I'll be covering some futures markets, trying to stay consistent with some of the markets that we've been looking at. So I will start with, in this case, the TNotes, the 10-year TNotes. As you know, we recently finished a really nice short trade on this market, and just a couple days ago we had a long trade set up. At the end of the day we were right here, so we had the ability to take this long. Now I know when you look at this on TNotes, some of you know that TNotes does not trade in decimals, it trades in fractions. So if you look at the data window, which I'll bring up real quick, one nice thing about the way this works is actually the data window shows the decimals. If you highlight the actual setup bar, you can see that it'll convert, if you're looking into my data window on the screen there, the entry prices to fractions. You see the cross L entry, that's the long entry, is 114 and basically 18.0 30 seconds. And that's the way that these interest rate markets trade in 30 seconds. Now the other thing to keep in mind is we'll have questions on whether or not to use the new trade filters on futures and stock. It is definitely, to me, it's more optional because we know obviously it's one of those obvious behavioral things with the futures. On even the stock, we don't get quite as much of the whipsaw action like you do in Forex. You just don't get those rapid changes of directions. I mean, clearly these markets can chop just like any other market, but it's not to the degree that you see in Forex. So I've got it set up right now to have that incremental set to 0, and I'm going to show this to you using the filters. The one thing you want to do is you always want to make a little adjustment on the setup, because remember, if you're using 0 as your incremental, there's no adjustment taking place. So this one was going to go long at 114 and 18 30 seconds. I would push it up to 114 and 21 30 seconds, and you'll get real comfortable with that. There's no real right answer other than to try to just get a little extra confirmation on the trade. And the good news is this trade did nicely. As you can see on Monday, it was pretty quiet, but it headed up a little bit. Didn't quite reach the target. So scroll forward a little bit here, and then you can see here on the 16th. We ended up hitting the target, and that was worth a little bit over $700 on that move. Our stop then went to break even, which did end up triggering out right there, and that was actually today. We came pretty close to the second target, so it's obviously the kind of thing you can use your own judgment on that. If you wanted to take something intraday that you caught, you certainly could take some more off. Regardless, at this point, we're now flat in this market, but kind of nice to see a good effective trade. Even after a trade goes to the full 3x, it's always good to see. Now, one other thing to keep in mind with the filters, we're not taking the short trade here. Since this long trade worked and hit the 1x level, at this point I'm waiting for a brand new trade before I look to get into this market again. So at this point we don't see it, so we'll just check once a day until we have a brand new setup. If it doesn't happen tonight, it'll probably happen tomorrow night. We'll get a new trade. The 30-year bond, which is the U.S., also trades very similar to the TY. Likewise, is coming off a nice trade as well. And this one was very similar to the TNotes. Had it kind of the same day that we had the setup. We had this long, like I mentioned. In this case, that long was at 115 and basically 1/2 of a 30 seconds. So I would have bumped that up a little bit, probably like 115 and 3/30 seconds to go long. And then we had this move up here. Pretty nice move overall, a little bit over a point. So that's worth in this case. There's 32 ticks and a point, so about a little bit over $1,000 on this move into target here. So that was pretty nice, and that actually happened the first day. Remember on the TNotes, it took the second day, even 2.5 days to get there. The 30-year moved pretty quickly, and we came very close, just like we saw on the other, to this 2x target, which would have been over $2,000. So again, like I said, if you happen to catch something like that, definitely nothing wrong with raising up the stop, even on a trailing basis, instead of to go with a break even. Actually lock a little bit in on the retrace back. You may as well. You're 90%, 80% of the way there to the 2x, but good trade. And that one also took out the even level. And so at this point, we're done. Once this directional here comes out, we'll get a brand new setup. So both of those have been doing very nicely. Let's go ahead and look at wheat. Okay, so here we've got the wheat futures. You might remember this one from the other day when we updated. I think we were on June 11th. So we were at the 1x. Remember, we entered right here. As you can see, same situation. Remember, if I'm not using the incremental, I see 620.50. I'm definitely going to work that adjustment around the 620 level, and maybe get short about 619, 619.50. And we went ahead and we hit our first target. That's good. That's worth in this case $50 a point. Let's call it 15 points because we had a little bit of an adjustment. So $750, and then we go to break even on the trailer, and it came pretty close to getting up to that stop, but it held on, as you can see here. Came back up to this is the break even level, and then where we updated was this day here. Remember, it was kind of going back and forth, but good things happen. We ended up going through the 2x level, and then down through the 3x level. So really nice trade overall. We hit all of our targets on this one. I'll go back to the regional setup. So we hit 604.50, we hit 588.50, and 572.50. I probably would have placed this at 605, this at 589, and this at 573. But the good news, over $2,000 at the 3x, it would take quite a bit position-wise if you were going to try to peel off 1x, 2x, 3x. That's a lot of margin. So more than likely, most people who trade these futures, you're probably trading the one contract. But let's say you were going for the 2x. In this case, you had over $1,500 or $1,400 in profit. So nice trade there. Let's take a look at soybeans and see what's been happening there. Okay, so on soybeans, we just came off a really nice long trade, as you know. We got up to that 2x level, over $2,000 in profit. We're now working on a short. This short triggered, in this case, on the 16th, so just to start the week. We came really close to our target. Even if we had pushed this up a little bit to 1180, let's say, on our target, just didn't quite get there. You can kind of see here we got down to 1188, just not quite there. It's a pretty big target as well. So you have to realize on that one the risk is about $1,800. So it's not going to be for everybody on this time frame, on this setup. Obviously there are some minis that can be traded too, but in this case you can kind of see us going up and down. This line here is the entry. We came somewhat close to target. We were up quite a bit, definitely over $1,000 at one point, but now it's sort of gone against us a little bit. But 1216 is where we're at as of right now in real time. We don't have the long reversal until up in this level, up in the high 1240s, and we might even want to consider pushing that above 1250 before we actually would go ahead and take a reversal on that. So right now we don't know how this one's going to end up on soybeans. It showed promise, but it hasn't quite been able to punch through, and at this point we're kind of just a little bit in the hole on this one, though still quite a ways away from our stop. So bigger risk, bigger reward trade on this soybeans trade. Okay, then last market to cover real quick, crude oil. As you know, we just came off a 3x target on a trade, so we were looking for obviously brand new setups, and in this case we had this setup that occurred on the evening of June 15th, so we were able to look at a potential entry here. In this case we looked at the long side, put it up at 71.52, and we got very close to target intraday, actually even before the pre-opening. As you know, this market opens at 9:30 for the floor trading. So I usually like to look at this before that time as well. Come in at night, take your setups as they are, and then check in before that 9:30 starts. Sometimes we're waiting for a new setup and we can find a brand new setup at that time. In this case, what I saw was we had just about hit the 1x. So for me at that point, at the minimum, I want to raise my stop to break even if I'm tempted at this point to take this off. And really, when you think about it, $1,400, in this move is probably about $1,200 in profit at that moment. What are you going to do? Let's just say the market's right here. Are you going to go ahead and just hold it for this full thing? I would say at a minimum, at least raise the stop to break even, and maybe even consider moving the stop up into below a little swing here and lock in some profit no matter what. So for me, worst case on this was break even. Probably best case was a few $100, and that's really it because it did come back down to the stop. And that happened intraday, and obviously the rest of the day I don't do anything because I'm not looking for new setups during the day. So then the evening comes around here, and so I'm right here, and I don't really have any setup at this point at the end of the day because this short happened intraday. It actually got to the 1x level, so there wasn't anything for me to do. This setup is basically over. So at that point I have nothing. So then I come in again. Remember we like to talk about the next morning? So the next morning, before the 9:30, I'm right here. And I actually have the opportunity to get on board this short because, it hasn't gone over halfway to target yet. So I can get on board that short. Now it doesn't work for me because you can see here if I got on board the short, it just doesn't break down to the 68.50, 68.43 level. So I can take the long though, because if the short fails, remember I can take the trade the other way, and that's what I'm long right now from the 71.52 level, and we're kind of right in here. We're just sort of holding the last couple days. It's been going sideways. So that's it. That's your update on the UST futures. Back with you in a few days.